Vostroyan Firstborn vs Sautekh Dynasty 3000 points. Tech engineer Veltrix de Guerra, self-proclaimed ingenious cyclomancer of the Omniscience anomaly, wearily buzzed static through his Vox grill as he placed the last bolt on the replacement panel of his ancient Mars pattern Baneblade. All seemed well. The Vostroyans were headed to battle again, and he would get to see his meticulous work pay off in the form of intense Xenos purging. He longed for the days of oil baths again and hoped this victory in the hands of the mostly competent fleshbags would ensure he was closer to leaving this frigid wasteland. His partially dated bionics did not respond well to the fine ice-cold dust, and he longed for a dark and grimy factory again. The squad of veterans in the back on the Baneblade sipped hot drinks they had warmed up by convincing the driver to rev up the engine to the red line for several minutes. The priest did his best to glare at them and show them his disdain, but all they saw was a tech priest standing there for several minutes, so they offered him a cup, which he declined by muttering something unintelligible and moving on to pack his tools up. While the Mars pattern Baneblade held the north flank, a squadron of 2 Lemon Russ executioners was led by some hot-shot tank commander in a Lemon Russ Vanquisher in the middle battle line, facing west. The battles here had long since ground to an attrition war against the Necrons. The goal was to punch through enemy lines to bring a forward base of operations to the enemy. The tank commander knew it was risky business, and he had his squadron moving carefully, weapons sweeping side to side as they advanced with the intention to draw fire. A Chimera with the platoon command squad and a commissar trundled along nearby to give support to either the north flank or spearhead. A squad of guardsmen held the ruins here as a strong point in case forces needed to hold back. On the southern flank, a Griffon pattern Chimera with an autocannon sheltered the company command squad and a commissar. They held the ruins with another squad of guardsmen. They would act as a reactionary force if the spearhead got cut off and would act as a pivot point for a sweeping attack coming down from the north to the south. A unit of stormtroopers were holding at high altitude as another quick reactionary force that packed some extreme prejudice. The Necrons held a fairly basic assault plan of their own. 2 Doomsday Arcs held the backline, 1 south and 1 north, 2 units of 3 bikes in the south, 1 in the north, a unit of 6 Immortals, 1 in the south, 1 in the north, and a unit of 2 Triarch Stalkers and a Tesseract Arc pushed from the middle. The Khartan Shard of the Void Dragon lurked on the north flank as well. The Necrons had also been planning on breaking the attrition line at this point as well, and came in with speed on their side. The Doomsday Arcs rose from the terrain line and fired their devastating cannons at the Baneblade. One clipped it, but the divine light of the Emperor intervened and the energy beam prematurely ruptured on contact with the Chimera instead. The second round missed the Baneblade completely, much to the relief of tech engineer Veltrix, and also slammed into the Chimera. A last gun on both sides were temporarily disabled as the intense energy overloaded the circuitry of the weapons. A guardsman unfortunate enough to be close to the Chimera had his carbon shadow burned into the dozer blade. The Void Dragon shard through a fiery comet at the spearhead guardsman squad. As it arced towards them with fiery death, the hatch of the Chimera opened up and a massive Vostroyan syringe filled with anti-Xenos fire antidote was tossed out. The devastating magic hit, and the 2 guardsmen who did not take the antidote in time were burned to a crisp. The Triarch Stalkers fired their weapons at the Lemon Russ squadron. They were able to sear the tank commander's hull, but do little else against the heavy armor at the range they were. The Tesseract Arc fired both particle beams at the spearhead guardsman but overshot both times, clipping the mortar team, but the loader's armor held up against the hit. The Necron bike units on the south flank fired into the southern guard squad. The medic in the Chimera prepped an anti-Xenos atomizer antidote and tossed it to the squad as soon as he saw the bikes on the horizon. The squad injected up and were completely fine as the advanced targeters avoided their cover and the powerful Gauss weapons cut through their armor. The regimental command came over the Vox and informed the Vostroyan company commander that they needed to destroy the building the spearhead squad was using as cover to deny the enemy resources, relay the data link from the southern beacon, and relay the data link for the northern beacon. The veterans piped up with an idea. Company command said they would take it under consideration, and then were duly ignored as the Mars pattern Baneblade driver floored it with an enthusiastic shout. The massive tank lurched forward and the driver slammed the tank into a hard clutch shift. The tank popped smoke and swung around hard, crushing the building as ordered and swinging rearward to the enemy. The veterans jumped out and stormed the north relay station as the main gun swung around and rattled the autocannon into the Triarch Stalkers. With the main gun sighted via coaxial weaponry, the main cannon thundered. A massive explosion rocked both of them incredibly hard and sent them stumbling. The quantum shielding of one stalker popped, but its proximity to its counterpart kept it protected. The last cannon firing at them backwards failed to get through the shield, but the hunter-killer missile blew straight into the exposed cockpit, crippling it further. The other last cannon tried to hit the Void Dragon shard but missed. The veterans took a hustle forwards and secured the northern comm relay via the bottom floor. They quickly patched a data spike in and broadcasted the latest information stored on the hard drives back to command. The spearhead guardsmen fired at the bikes under orders but were unable to do any damage. Their heavy mortar fired upon the northern immortals but missed, firing off of intel rather than line of sight. Their Chimera escort moved forward to assist the veterans, lay down ineffective cover fire, and pop smoke. The command squad in the back fired their last cannon out of the rear hatch but missed the stalkers. The tank commander ordered the unit to take it down, but the order got garbled and they opened fire. The hunter-killer missiles all missed, but one of the last cannons punched a hole straight through the Triarch stalker, killing it. As the first one collapsed in a smoldering junk heap, the Vanquisher cannon's rocket propelled round punched clean through its quantum shield and damaged the control array. The multimelter shots were all off target as the tank commander's driver lurched over a large rock. The rest of the unit fired their plasma cannon spansons forwards and to the left, joining their executioner plasma cannons to the left in a massive barrage of superheated plasma. The forward shots did nothing, as did the massive plasma barrage to the left. One of the tanks burned a little from the overheating guns, but they rolled forward and popped smoke to cover the battle line. Their pintle weapons chattered rounds into the bikes on the northern flank, but only damaged one of them. The Chimera and friends on the southern flank opened fire. The Chimera put the hunter-killer missile downrange at the Doomsday Ark hanging in the open but missed. Its autocannon, heavy bolter, and stormbolter all missed the incoming bikes as well. The command squad in the back was able to hit the oncoming bikes with the last cannon, and the loader's Cantrell pattern last gun scored several hits as well. Combined with the squad's fire being laid down, one bike was shot down and another damaged. The Khartan shard of the Void Dragon moved out of cover of the Xenos buildings and approached the rear facing Baneblade. It fired its spear at it, hitting once despite the smoke, and disabled a heavy bolter. A very annoyed engine seer Veltrix screeched in annoyance. The fiery comet came down again, this time hitting the veterans. They were mostly annihilated as the medic could not get his Super Vaccine 4 death ready in time, saving only one. The remainder were slaughtered as the Void Dragon shard charged in and slew them. A Doomsday monolith came crashing down from above, aiming for the Lemon Russ squadron, but only ended up clipping one and some of the veterans stuck in the open. The tank had its spent hunter-killer missile launcher knocked offline as it came in from a hard angle. Steve the Human brought his flayed one friends out to meet his new friends, but misunderstood that Cadian Shock and Vostroyan Firstborn are two very different breeds of guardsmen. A lot of tracking tank turrets informed Steve the Human that he had made a terrible error. The Gauss fire in every direction punished some guardsmen but was wildly ineffective. The main gun knocked a last gun offline on the Chimera on the southern flank. The bikes on the northern flank landed on top of the building and fired onto the spearhead squad in the open. The guardsmen were cut down where they stood. The Tesseract Arc came in around the smoke as far north as it could, blasting several holes into the Baneblade as well. Thanks to its reinforced weaponry, the Demolisher cannon was unaffected. From the backlines, the Doomsday Arcs both hit and damaged the Baneblade, causing more weapons to be disabled. The Triarch Stalker lurched forward, unable to make left turns with the controls out. Making only right turns in almost a full circle, it fired and moved closer but was unable to get within effective melter range and failed to damage the Lemon Russ tanks. The bikes on the southern flank moved up and fired in concentrated amounts on the veterans. Once again the super serum was produced, and the sergeant was able to withstand multiple atomizing moments thanks to the protection of the God Emperor and his combat stimulants. New regimental orders came in. Destroy enemy vehicles at all cost, hold the southern comm station once again, and destroy enemy forces through overwhelming firepower. The Baneblade continued its power drift and swung all weapons forwards toward the Void Dragon shard. The cannons roared and thundered, heavy bolters chattered, the heavy stubber barked, but the driver's erratic maneuvers caused most of the weapons to miss, so he was only injured instead of slain as hoped. The Tesseract Arc had its quantum shields burst though, and its main engine suffered crippling damage that reduced its speed. Engineer Veltrix kept replacing the same panel that was getting blown off and screeching in binary at the Xenos and their beautiful technology. The Chimera on the northern flank sped away from the explosions behind it and swung around, firing with no effect against the Void Dragon. A unit of stormtroopers dropped in behind the Immortals on the southern flank but drifted off course, crashing into the debris of the fallen Triarch Stalker. Tangled and pinned down, they fired snapshots at the Immortals, knocking several over. Most of them stayed down. The Lemon Rust tanks finally got their Bring It Down order through and formed a back-to-back battle line while continuing the assault. The tank commander continued facing west and completely obliterated the remaining Triarch Stalker with perfect hits from all weapons. The devastating impact of the last cannon, Vanquisher cannon, and all multi-melter rounds exploded the vehicle in a giant fireball, killing one of the stormtroopers trapped in the wreckage nearby. The executioners fired all plasma cannons into the flayed ones, managing to keep 7 completely melted despite their reanimation abilities. Both Trazyn and Orican were both pummeled into the ground by automatic plasma cannon fire as they attempted to defy the barrage. Their shields failed and they both nearly died. Their last cannons missed the Doomsday monolith. Or at least anything important. The pintle weapons chattered but did no damage to the flayed ones. One of the tanks melted a little bit further from the heat. The remaining sergeant on the southern flank pushed towards the comms relay, dodging between atomizing fellow soldiers with a massive syringe sticking out of his thigh. Roaring from the combat stimulants, he fired a defiant but ineffective bolt pistol round at the closing bikes and relayed the data. The Chimera continued to spray rounds just like the command squad inside. The Void Dragon Shard dropped a fiery comet on the stormtroopers and killed all but 2 of them. His spear then hammered its bolts of energy into the Lemon Rust squadron, but the quick efforts of buttoning up the hull prevented one round from being effective. It charged them as well, ramming his spear into them. Their overwatch fire was split between the devastating Kartan Shard and the oncoming flayed ones. Several flayed ones were shot up by the intense overwatch fire, and did not get back up. Both executioners were destroyed, but the commander lived on. He rammed it into full reverse, crushing Trazyn in the middle of their duel and killed several more flayed ones in his retreat. These did not get back up either. The Void Dragon closed and resumed. The southern flank bikes closed in and obliterated the sergeant, who posthumously was awarded an Imperialis for securing much of the vital data processed by High Command for the ongoing war effort. The other group of bikes moved and engaged the Chimera, tearing massive pieces out of its weak side armor and wrecking its internals. The Doomsday Arcs closed in, one firing a broadside that killed the stormtroopers, and they put their main weapons against the Baneblade, damaging it severely. The Immortals on the northern flank fired into the exposed side of the Chimera. It suffered massive hits, 23 out of 12 dice. Go Tesla, and managed to get 2 holes punched in. The Chimera was close to its last legs and the engine began running incredibly rough. The northern flank bikes joined fire and the Chimera was destroyed. The command squad and commissar were forced to bail out right next to the Immortals and prepare for the inevitable. They charged and entered a very slow fight where there were a lot of swords and one Immortal died, but the commissar was injured. The Tesseract Arc punched another hole in the Baneblade, but the particle beams fizzled on contact. It continued to operate at half speed, wearing down the bigger tank. The Doomsday Monolith fired its main gun into the Baneblade, disabling another heavy bolter. Engineer Veltrix was thrown to the deck. Sparks rained down on him and he watched the same blasted panel get blown off the circuit junction for a 4th time. Flames licked up the wall and another klaxon joined the chorus. Its sponson weapons began firing punishing amounts of Gauss in all directions again. One sponson tinkled off of the Baneblade's hull and had no effect. Another pounded the command squad pinned on the northern position and killed the heavy weapons team of the command squad. The last sponson able to target anything punched the southern flank Chimera hard enough to disable one of its last guns. Regimental command voxed in new orders. Secure both comm stations in the southern flank and to scour the skies of any possible air asset the Necrons had. With few options remaining, the commissar jumped out of the last Chimera and moved to secure one, with the command squad securing the one near it best they could despite being bared down on by those tomb blades. The Chimera attempted to maneuver over to the side to offer more fire against them but became stuck in the ruins of the building they were sheltering in. They failed to damage any bikers and failed to secure the objective, but the commissar got his. A furious tech priest rapidly worked on securing the panel, beating it into place with his servo arm and accidentally restored power to one of the heavy bolters. The Baneblade pulled close to the Doomsday monolith to make it dangerous to bring weapons to bear on it and get some distance from the Tesseract arc that it was firing on. Autocannons failed, las cannons failed, the main gun got through but the Demolisher cannon was only able to glance it. All of the heavy machine guns failed as well. The tank commander ordered bring it down and struggled to hit, let alone wound the Void Dragon shard. It had to retreat again, barely alive. The Void Dragon fell behind. The platoon command squad fired pistols and the commissar melted an immortal. It did not stand back up. They went in with power swords and a massive syringe, with the commissar dropping another immortal that stood up. Orikan the diviner aligned his mind with the celestial bodies of the universe and rose to great power and stature, power running through his staff. He charged the Lemon Rust tank commander and bounced it off the hull with no effect. The tank commander was destroyed by the Void Dragon. Both Doomsday arcs fired into the Baneblade, causing critical cascade failure. Engineer Veltrix bailed out of the tank in an unceremonious heap as flames spread to the munition rack and exploded in a near maximum radius. Veltrix remained unharmed, as did everything else. The broadsides from the arcs slowly began to wear down the company command squad, costing them injuries. The Kartan shard dropped a fiery meteor on the command squad in the southern flank. Once again, Anti-Xeno's fire antidote was produced and they were able to weather it instead of dying. The Immortals on the northern flank continued to fight, losing one to injure the platoon commander. The intense fighting continued tooth and nail. Power swords versus heavy shock troops in a never-ending duel. Orders came through, but no one was able to receive them. The Chimera on the southern flank continued to fire wildly trying to support the Commissar but failed to hit anything again. The Commissar also failed to do anything with his bolt gun. The platoon command squad in the north fired pistols, with the Commissar's plasma pistol killing another immortal. He then slew another immortal and they gained a leg up on the Necrons, but they held the line. The Engineer, we forgot he was alive, rolled off camera, damaged the Doomsday monolith with his last pistol and closed in with Holy Omnisia Rage. The Void Dragon destroyed the last Chimera in the south with his spear. The Tomb Blades rode their bikes in hot and fast to close in on the platoon command squad, who promptly failed to kill the last immortal. In turn the immortal did not damage either. Orders continued to come in, but no long-range Voxcasters were functioning. The Commissar slew the immortal, but it reanimated yet again. Engineer moved closer off camera. The Necrons continued into borrowed time before more pressing things drew their attention. The bikes closed in and charged into the fray as well. The Commissar was wounded again, nearly slain. He fought back and killed the immortal twice over, but it stood up anyways. The medic proposed, calmly, that maybe they fall back as he patched yet another wound on the Commissar. Without blinking, the Commissar turned the medic to ash and resumed fighting. The Commissar died fighting, slaying the immortal yet again. Unnoticed, the Engineer slipped into the unattended Eternity Gateway and found himself on a cold dark tomb world lit by green ambient lighting. Having already hid himself under the corpse of a flayed one, he began to explore this strange world and obsess over the technology present. He walked up to the first Necron warrior he saw, introduced himself as Tlazir the Insane, untiring messenger of the Carrion Labyrinth and fellow sweet technological construct that would no doubt be stripped for parts by the Mechanicus. The warrior just stared into nothingness, as warriors are lucky to even be described as barely sentient on a good day, so the self-proclaimed Tlazir Necron carried on, digging into technology he barely understood with his welding torch and wearing half a flayed one like a cloak, with a tasteful human hand acting as a clutch.